Good evening and welcome to Friday's Live with me, Raj Nayak. My guest this evening is a man who spent all his life with horses, and he still does. He has this beautiful boutique stable on a beach in a small fishing village in a place called Nargol in Gujarat, where he has 16 horses. And he does training there. It's called the Seahorse Equestrian Training Center. Please join me as I welcome India's only equestrian Olympian, Anees, Imtiaz Anees, to Friday's Live. Imtiaz, welcome.
Hi, Raj. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, nice to see you. It's been a long time, and I just noticed that you released your new book, and that's when I said it's time for us to connect and take it forward.
I'm looking forward to the chat.
You know, I love horses, and all my life I've dreamt about riding a horse or seen them in a movie, but it's never happened. So my first question to you is: at what age? Up to what age? At what age can one learn riding a horse?
There is no age. You can learn to ride at any time you want. It's all about what you want in life. Even competing at the international level, we have, as we're speaking today, we have a 60-year-old competing at the Olympic Games from Australia. So age has got no reason for you to not get on a horse.
No, but somebody who's competing at 60 obviously is raced all his life, I would assume.
Yes.
Right? Not that he started at 60.
No, but at least what I'm trying to say is that they can be as competitive at that age. So even if you want to start your riding, as long as you have you want to do it and you're fit, you can get on a horse. And you don't need that kind of fitness like running a race or running a marathon or anything like that. Just generally.
And how safe is it?
Well, it depends. Again, to learn to ride, it's safe. When you're competing at top level, national level, and the sport that I did, which was the discipline that I did was 3D eventing, that is dangerous because you're doing it at a very high speed over a lot of fences. But for just generally learning to ride, I really recommend it for everybody because it's a wonderful feeling to be on a horse.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the only time I ever sat on a horse, probably when I was a little boy in some fair or something, they made me sit on it and went for a chukker.
But that's where it all starts. It starts in a fair, then it starts usually at a hill station, then it goes to a holiday. But
So tell me, when did your love affair with horses start?
Mine started at a very young age. I was only 4 years old, and my grandfather and my mother took me to the riding club because they both were avid horse lovers themselves, and they used to ride. And right from then, I had this affinity with horses. I just loved them. I used to hug them, brush them. I couldn't ride them because I was too small. And I was waiting for that stage. Once in a while, my grandfather put me on just for a walk. And I was totally comfortable, fearless.
And where was this? I mean, in Mumbai?
Yeah, in Mumbai at the racecourse, the Mahalakshmi racecourse.
You mentioned your parents were horse lovers. What did they do?
Well, they were both, my father was a businessman. He worked in a shipping company. And my mother was, those days, somebody was a working woman. She had a couple of jobs. She was very creative. So she was in, designing cane furniture. She was in interiors, travel and tourism. So horses was just something as a hobby.
And who encouraged you to, was it somebody else in the family who was into racing or riding horses or things like that?
Just my mom. She loved to ride, and she would go and ride every morning, and I would be up, at whatever time it took, at 6 o'clock in the morning, at a very young age, and ready to go with her.
So what does it take to be a horse rider at that age? Because I know a lot of youngsters today are taking on to riding horses.
Yes, actually, to be speaking, at that stage, the only thing you need is not to have fear. Nothing else. Everything else is fine. You can learn to ride very easily. It's like riding a bicycle. If you don't have fear of falling, you can learn to ride a bicycle very easily. And the good part, just like riding a bicycle, once you learn to ride, you know it forever. It's not something you have to refresh or keep doing every year. Once you know how to ride, it sticks with you.
And how expensive is it?
Well, it depends. Again, there are lots of now smaller riding clubs in smaller towns. So, I think it's a matter of priority. I don't look at it expensive because, even if you look at a sport like tennis, it can be very expensive. Depends on how much you want to put into the shoes and the rackets. So, the same with any sport. It depends upon what your budget is. But I think it's now getting more and more affordable for people to experience riding as a sport.
So if I ask you in your life, who's been your biggest influence?
Well, that's very easy, very easy. My biggest influence has been my coach. I was very lucky, Raj, because I had a coach who I had when I was 11 years old, and she took me to the Olympic Games. So for 20 years, I stuck with the same coach. We had no hiccups, never a misunderstanding, never a disagreement. So she was really everything at that in that point of my life. Even till today, any move I make, I do not, I always run it by her or I'll call her. She was an English lady. And just so happened that how you get expats come to India. So her husband was posted in India, and she was one of the top riders. But she was just more than a rider, someone you look up to. She was a real mentor. She was extremely well read. She was extremely well traveled. When I was a young little boy, I would always say, when I grow up, I want to be like Diana.
Her name was Diana.
Yes.
Yeah. And for 20 years you stayed with, she lived in India all along?
No, she lived in India for about 6 years. So the initial part, and then she went back to England, and we kept in touch. And whenever I started going international, I went to Australia. She used to fly from England to Australia just to coach me and be at major events, wherever it was, whether it was in Australia, whether it was America. And what the best part was, Raj, she did it without anything in return. There was no money exchange. It was because she loved my parents for what they did for her when she was in India, coming from the English countryside. She was dropped into Mumbai city. She was a bit of a shock to her system. And, she became really good friends with the family, and we really looked after her as a family member. And so she was just extended family, but just such a wonderful person.
So what was your journey like? When you were young, you started riding at the age of what age?
Well, I started riding when I was 5 years old. I was already winning competitions when I was 6 and 7. And then it just grew from then. And then my parents got a bit scared because they thought, this fellow is only going to become, that's all he does. He needs to have a little bit of education. So it's not easy for a privileged boy from Bombay to go to boarding school. But it made me who I am, It really made a man of me,
So where did you go?
I went to a school called Lawrence School, Sanaa.
Sanaa, okay.
Yeah. So I did 6 years in Sanaa. 7 years in Sanaa.
And obviously there was no horse riding there, was it?
No. So only riding the holidays. It's in the book, if you come back from my school holidays, and literally we should get off the train, and the train used to arrive at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and my parents would have my riding clothes already in the car. It was the first 10 minutes was all about my parents, and then it was take me to my horses.
So when did you decide to then take this as a profession?
So as time went by, Raj, it's a bit of again, it's a lot in the book, but it was always my desire to represent India at that international level. I used to give victory speeches, and I was, always, thank you speeches to everybody about how I'm going to thank everybody when I represent India. So it was always a dream. I didn't even know which sport at that time. When I was at school, I was a good runner, so I thought I'll do it in athletics. At that time, Carl Lewis was a very good runner, and he had won 5 gold medals. I thought if he can win 5, I can definitely win 1. Then later on, I realized I wasn't fast enough, and then I was a good swimmer. So I swam for school and college, and I thought if swimming, Mark Spitz could win, 7 or 9 gold medals at that time, I could definitely win 1. So things like that kept coming because my goal was always to represent India. Then with the horses always being in the background, that's when I realized after I finished school that this is what I really want to do, and I started competing nationally, and I had some good wins, and then I was in the junior category, and then went international. And then history happened. So it was just one thing led to the other.
And how do you owned your own horse, I presume, right?
This is quite interesting, but I didn't. I never owned my own horse. So right up to actually my final run to the Olympic Games, I never really owned a horse except for my very first horse, which is Rajesh, which was actually owned by my parents. but for myself, I was always given horses. It's just amazing. I mean, it's really lovely story about how many people came together to make this dream come true. At every stage, I had wonderful people who gave me horses to ride, and I would compete and I would win on their horses, and it gave them joy and gave me horses, and I had horses.
You want to elaborate a bit, acknowledge these people, and talk about them?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it was just wonderful. I mean, right from the first early stages, I had now he's a brigadier in the army, Brigadier Bishnoi, and he had the most amazing jumping horses, and he used to ride in the senior category. So the junior category, his children didn't ride at that time. So he would just, literally adopted me and said, nah, all these horses are yours. So I used to compete with juniors on his horses. I was very fortunate even because of Sana. I had a lot of, old Sanarians who were all in the 61st Cavalry. So a lot of these cavalry officers like Colonel Rupi Bra, Colonel Pickle Sodi, they were really good riders in their time, but none of their children rode. And since I was a Sanarian, there was some connection to me from the school and to the family. Whenever I went to all these national competitions, they would just give me horses and I would ride these horses. So and then when I went international, that was even more amazing. I was in Australia and I had people, I would ride different people's horses because I couldn't afford my own. And when it came to competition time, they would say, no, Imtiaz, you ride them. So I even won my first international competition on a horse owned by somebody else.
And you migrated to Australia for some time, right? How did that happen?
Well, I realized that in our events, because of equestrian, there's no top level competitions in India, unfortunately. So we only have it. I'm just to give you an example to get technical. It goes on stars. So there's only one star is in India, and then there's 2, 3, 4, and now it's 5 to go to the Olympic Games. So you have to go abroad to even qualify. And I just thought Australia had won the last. It was all calculated. Australia had won the last 2 gold medals. I said, obviously, they know what they're doing. The next Olympic Games are in Australia. So that makes me even easier that if I do get a horse, I won't have to have the expense of flying it. So that's how I decided that I'm going to leave home, leave family, leave everything I knew, and made a huge sacrifice and decided that I'm going to start this whole Olympic bid in Australia.
And were you married then?
No.
You're not.
Single-minded, single goal. Just one thing, just get to the Olympics. That was my only goal in life.
But did you ride horses for commercial purpose? I mean, like racing?
No, never. Never. I wasn't a jockey. So race horses totally different. We were always equestrian. We did amateur racing when I was young. At 11 and 12 years old. It was which is called the Bombay Gymkhana races. Only amateurs took part, no professionals. And I wasn't in racing at all. I was always in equestrian.
So just for a layman like me who doesn't understand, except for, like I said, I love horses. What is the difference between a jockey and an equestrian?
So a jockey is a person or a rider that rides race horses in races. The flat races that you see, like the Derby and the 1,000 guineas, 2,000 guineas, the Oaks. What you see the flat races in Mahalakshmi, or even if you're at the Ascot and things like that. So there's totally different build. They have to be very lightweight because their handicap is done on weight. So they're called jockeys, those who ride in flat races, and for that, it's a totally different sport. Our sport is equestrian, which is an Olympic discipline. There's dressage, there's show jumping, and there's an event called 3-day eventing, and that's the discipline that I did, which actually incorporates all 3. It incorporates dressage, cross country, and show jumping. So it's actually like a triathlon that you do over 3 days on one horse. So that's all equestrian. So racing is completely different.
And obviously, did you at any moment in your life consider being a jockey? Because there's an adrenaline rush, right? Racing.
Absolutely. But even in cross country, there's an adrenaline rush. But of course I did. When I was young, that's why I was sent to boarding school, because I was scared I was going to become a jockey, And they said, no, they didn't want me to become a jockey. So that was one of the things on their mind, that maybe we should send him. But when I was very, very young, I used to work the race horses and, in morning and just for exercise, but never rode in an actual race.
Interesting. So what do you look for in a horse?
That's a good question. Well, the first thing we always look for, I always say there are 3 things that you have to look in a horse. And the most important thing is temperament first. So temperament first, soundness second, and ability is third. And people always get it mixed up. Now I'll explain that. So first thing is temperament. They have to have a good work ethic and good mind, just like humans. Those who always toppers, they're not always the most successful people in life. You know what I mean? You've got to be the work ethic ones. The ones that actually show up to work every day, consistent. As we always used to say in school and college, the second row, third benchers, they could be more successful than the first benchers. So that's the temperament. It's very important for them to have the mindset and the work ethic. And every successful person, that's one thing they do have, right? It's the work ethic. The second thing, what I talked about, is soundness. Now, that's a bit of a technical term, but is that there should be no injuries. So when you look at the conformation, they should not have a little bit of they should be in proportion. They should have everything should be in proportion, so you can think like this is an athlete. Like you look at people and say, well, this is an athletic body, and this person doesn't have an athletic body. So same with horses. When we look at horses, we know what looks athletic and what isn't athletic. So that's very, very important to keep the longevity of the horse in the sport, because when we're training, we don't want them to knuckle down or break down or have injuries while we push them and put the pressure on, because then it all gets wasted and we have to start back from scratch. And to me, which a lot of people put before, but I always put ability last, because if they've got the brain and they've got the mental, physical ability to do it, you've got more than 70% there. Then, of course, they have to have a little bit of ability and talent. Like I always say in life, hard work always beats talent.
That's true. At what age? Because you get the horse when it's grown up or when it's still a...
So they're all different stages. Some people breed them and they break them in and start them from the young age of 3-year-olds. Some of them actually, get them at a bit older age when they've gone through a couple of other trainers and they've done the initial stage. So everybody has a different balance, depending upon what's available, depends upon your price range. The younger you get them, they're a little cheaper. The older you get them, they're a little bit more experienced, so they'll be a little bit more expensive. So it just depends upon what fits your budget, what fits your timing, and what fits your goal. So everybody's different.
And tell me what is the hardest thing that you have to do besides just learning how to ride the horse, right?
Yes.
What are the other things? What are the other things that one has to do? Because people only see people sitting on horses riding. It looks very glamorous and things like that. But I'm sure there's a lot of hard work that goes behind in preparation
in our sport,
taking care of the horse itself, right?
Yes. So the management is everything, and this is what I've started a school, which is Seahorse Equestrian, is to teach that more than a lesson. So everybody can get a riding lesson. You can go anywhere and get a riding lesson, but it's the other part that is really, really important. I actually have done an equine degree in it, So in Australia, I actually studied and did an equine course just to learn horse management, because there's so much. You got to know the anatomy of the horse. You got to know the kinesiology of the horse. You got to know how it works, so that we can have. It's an athlete as well, and it's got to perform at peak, just like you got to perform at peak performance. So there's a lot extra that we have to do, even looking after them. Even at the top level, when you're competing, the horses get a massage, they get acupuncture, they get laser therapy. We ice them all the time. So it's all important to keep them as fit as us. Nutrition is a huge factor in equestrian. We got to time the nutrition as to when we feed, how much we feed. Is it too much protein? Is it too much carbs? Do we need to put fat into the diet? So it's all calculated. It's all quite scientific.
Very fascinating. So what is your routine like in a day?
My routine now at the Olympics.
No, we'll come to the Olympics later. Generally,
Okay.
what is the routine?
Now my routine is I get up every morning at 5 o'clock, 5:15. It would be my I'm at the stable at 5:30 every morning, and we ride horses, and I ride a few horses. Even now, at the age of 50, I ride at least 2 to 3 horses every morning, and then I teach. So we have students that stay with us on a long-term basis because they have national and international goals. We have students that just come for the weekend. We have students that just come for fun. So it just depends upon what your requirement is. We cater to all, and we make a schedule the night before for that morning. We try and finish all the horses in the morning, and then we have a quick break, have some breakfast, and then we finish again another lot of horses. And then it's all to do with management, bathing, stretching, brushing, bandaging. All that takes place, and then we and the feeding. I never miss a feed. Or even though I have staff that can feed my horses, I'm always there, so that we know for sure how much each horse gets, whether it's protein, whether it's carbohydrate, how much fat we're adding to it, what vitamins and minerals are going. So it's a huge process. In the afternoon, I take a couple of hours nap. I'm too exhausted because But then in the evening we start back again. So the horses that couldn't get finished in the morning, we do them in the evening. I do more lessons in the evening and teaching, and then we again go back to the whole routine for the horses, and then we do theory. I sit down and we actually put pen and paper down, and we actually go through. The students choose the topic. I always ask them, you choose the topic, and then we discuss it. Each one will have their views, and we'll go back and forth about whether it's on fitness, whether it's on aerobic and anaerobic, or whether it's on what bits to use, what gear to use. There's so many topics that we can learn on with regard to the horses. So we spend a lot of time and we choose a topic, and then I'm an early to bed. So much to my wife, she's always because we're in this small fishing village and she's from Mumbai, so she always says it's 9 o'clock and you're already getting ready to bed. I mean, you're not 100.
No, but no, I saw some pictures. A friend of mine had posted the pictures from Nargol, from the beach, and I was like mesmerized with what it is. So why did you choose Nargol?
Nargol is a very special place. Ever since we were young, we were about 10 years old. My parents had a property, and it's a beach property. And so we always grew up there. We were in school and college and our friends. So it was always a special place for us. But then I went overseas to train, and compete. And after 25 years, I've now returned back. Actually, nearly 30 years, I've returned back to India. And I decided that property is there. And why not, it was such a special part of our lives while growing up. Why not make it the equestrian place instead of going somewhere else? So that's where the whole thing started. We already have the home there. We built the stables. We've got 16 stables. And we have the beach that we can train on. And what's even more important, coming back to the management, is that we have the salt water. So we do great saltwater therapy. So the days that they jump, after that, the horses can go straight in for a swim, or they can go get cold water on their legs. So it's fantastic therapy as well. So it works both ways.
And do you speak to your horses?
All the time. I'm always talking to them. Even at night, after I have dinner, I always make a round of of the stables, just to check their waters or check their hay and check the stable. And I will pet each horse and have a little chat with them. Each one is special. They all mean a lot to me. Our sport is so amazing that it's not about the end result. Everybody wants to win, but it's the journey. And, we have horses as part of it. So it just makes it even more special than just having a tennis racket or a cricket bat.
Are you the only son to your parents, or you got siblings?
I have siblings. I have a daughter. I have a sister, and she also used to ride, and was quite a good rider as well. Not as competitive as me, but she also. So it was a family sport. We all rode. Mum rode, I rode, my sister rode when we were young. So it was really some great times and great memories.
So tell me about. Let's come to your. We'll go to Olympics a little later because that's the final thing. So tell me about your family now.
My family now. I have a son. His name is Zamir. He's a very good. He also loves sport. Plays a lot of tennis and plays football. He's not much of a rider. Just rides because dad rides. So he knows how to ride. So he comes and spends his holidays and weekends in Nargol from Mumbai, and it's wonderful. So he can ride on the beach, and we can ride together and bond. We play a lot of sport together, so it's just wonderful. It's just really nice that because after a certain age, when they become as most people know, when you're a teenager at 16, the communication gets less and less. It becomes into monosyllables. Like, how are you doing? Good. How is school? Fine. It's like that's if you get one word, you're like really lucky. Mostly it's usually a nod, and that also is enough. But when we can play sport together, it's really fun. So I'm really lucky and blessed that I'm still fit enough that we can play any sport. So whether it's tennis or whether it's squash, football, even carom, it doesn't matter. Whether we're sitting down, we are very competitive as a family. The whole family, mom, dad, myself, and my wife, we all play board games, or we play games together. I have a lovely wife, Zenath, and so she's very, very supportive. It's not very easy for her as well. It's a lot of sacrifices that people have to make when you want to live this life. She's a city girl, lives in Mumbai all her life. In the communications world. So, corporate world, it was always active, fast, buzzing, and now she's in this small fishing village where nothing happens, absolutely nothing. The only thing that moves are my horses. Nothing else moves. So it's a change of lifestyle, and, we spend a lot of time together, but it's different, Mom and dad are still great supporters. Mom's always and dad both are very proud of the book and, telling all their friends about it. So I'm very blessed, all through my life. I've had just wonderful, wonderful support from everybody. And I always tell people, if you want to be a sportsman, even though we play an individual sport, it's a bit like car racing. When you're a driver and you drive your car by yourself, but it's, you can only win how fast the pit changes the tires. So you still need the right team, even though it's an individual sport. So same in equestrian. Even if it's just you riding, you need good farriers, you need good vets, you need good body workers, you need just moral support as well, because there's so much mental strain as well.
So you mentioned you need vets and things like that. So what kind of infrastructure or medical facilities you have in a place like Nargol, or you bring them back to Mumbai when you have to treat them?
So actually, I can do most of the medical stuff. So
Okay.
I can give all the all the injections, IVs, drips are all done by me. Again, because I'm not sure whether you're aware, but horses, their feet, they need to get shoes every month. So we call it a farrier. So the farrier is the one, but I'm lucky because of the footing being so good in Nargol. I keep my horses barefoot, and we get a farrier who comes and trims them. So a bit like a manicure, pedicure every month. So we're lucky that he's very good, and he's actually a wonderful man. His name is MD. We call him MD, and he's actually trained in Germany and trained in Australia. And guess where he lives? In Surat, like 3 hours away from Nargol. I was like, oh my God, I hit the gold mine. So he comes, and he's a wonderful man, and spends time and trims their horses and gets their feet looking really good, because that's something that's only it's important and has to be done professionally. So I'm
And
lucky in the veterinary side.
how did you locate him?
Oh, just through contacts and friends. People and people. I have a wonderful friend from Japloop who actually owns a riding school in Pune, and Rohan. And he was holding a show and asked me to come as a judge. And MD was there as well as the farrier. So he introduced us, and I said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "Surat." I said, "I can't. I don't believe this." So this is what I love about the whole journey. It's amazing how people come together. Just you meet wonderful people throughout. I'm sure you met many in this talk show as well. It's just you just don't know so much about those people, and when you get to meet them, you realize, wow, what a small world we live in.
Yeah, actually, I mean, so many of my friends on this show, I mean, I've got to know more about them from the show than
Yes.
otherwise. And that's so. So, do you know the names of all your horses?
Absolutely.
All 16 of them.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, all 16. I know the horses from the very first horse I rode when I was 5 years old. That's my life. It's all about the horses. Everything is about the horses. Even in my stables in Nargol, I have a placard, a brass plaque in every stable for the horses that meant to me. So they're not even the names of the horses that are in the stable. It's the horses that actually made me. So right from my first horse to my Olympic horse has a stable named after him.
Yeah, there's somebody. I'm just trying to see somebody whether some question had come up. Okay, now continue.
Okay. So even in my stables in Nargol, every stable is named after a horse that meant something to me in my life. So my first Olympic Games, my first World Championships, Asian Games, Nationals, Internationals, or even my first riding horse. Every horse has its name, as a brass plaque on their stable, because it's all about the horses. I mean, that's what we do. We're sportsmen, but they're the sportsmen. We just sit there and look pretty and get all the glamour.
And what's the lifespan of a horse?
So the lifespan of a horse, so it's quite nice. So I'll come back to your question of racing and equestrian. So in racing, their lifespan is between 2 to 5. So usually, like you run the Derby at 3 years old, and then by 4 and 5 they retire. So unless they're a stallion or a mare that's really good for breeding, they go back into breeding, and otherwise they go into equestrian, or they go into polo, or they go into the riding school. So from 5 they can go all the way up to 20. Some can live to 24, but usually I would say 18 is when they you can still ride them. Then anything above 18, it's a plus. But between 5 to 24.
And do you go visiting some of your old horses?
Unfortunately, none of my, because we've traveled all over the world now, so none of my horses are alive, and they may be in different parts of the world. So that's that's life.
Yeah, that must be quite sad when you have to depart, right? When you have to leave.
You can see if you read, when you read the book, you'll know. I mean, there were heartbreaks. I miss them so much.
Was there any particular horse that was very special to you?
Now you can't. They all were. It's like, who do you like more, mom or dad? Each and every one was very, very special, very special. But if you have to choose one, I would say 2 would be Rajesh, because that was my very, very first horse, and I had this amazing bond with him. I was really little. even when I sat on the saddle, my legs were not even long enough to go around the saddle. I was that little, and he still did everything for me and never ever never put a foot wrong. And then of course my Olympic horse, because he took me to the biggest event that any sportsman could ever dream of. And you know what the beauty of it is, that it wasn't a made horse. We both learned together. Like most people are buying horses that are already international level or national level. Both him and me were going up the grades from 2, 3, 4. We did all together, so we were learning together as well. So both of us were extremely inexperienced. It was just trust that we had for each other.
And what was his name?
Spring Invader.
Spring Invader. And Diana was with you through all this journey?
Throughout the journey. Yes. And the world, after the Olympics, 2 years later, I went to the World Championships in Spain, and she was there. She's always been there. She's just been amazing.
So tell me about your stay in Australia.
Well, my stay in Australia was quite, again, amazing, because I went there to train, and I went to one of the stables, and all things, as a lot of failures happen. I got a whole, it's all in the book, so I'm going to give you little snippets, and things fell apart, and I had lots of failures and problems happen. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to read the book to do it. But again, there I had an angel, just like how I had Diana in India. I had a family, Australian family, and they were really senior senators. He was a senior senator. She was from a bureaucrat family, and they were from the early settlers of Australia. So they've actually, their name has been written in the history book of Australia. So a very prominent family. And they just took a liking to me. And when they saw me and they realized what a situation I was in, one day she just came in a car and said, "That's it. You're coming and staying with me till the Olympic Games." I lived with them for 3 years. And, they just supported me, looked after me. And, they had kids. I was just like one extended family. I got into the house, and the next day she was giving me orders. You pick up so-and-so, you drop so-and-so, you're in charge of this and you're in charge of that. And I was just a part of the family. I was not an outsider. I was treated just like one of them. It was just amazing. It was just, and I always tell people that behind every successful man there's a woman. I was lucky at that time. I had 3, so I really couldn't fail. I had my mother, I had Diana, and I had Beverly MacArthur. So when you have 3 strong women like this, you can't really fail.
So what was your? You had to prepare for the Olympics for how long?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, every year you train to move the level higher, because it's not only at that level that you're at 4 years. If you can be at that level for 4 years, that would be wonderful. But I never had that opportunity, because I not trained. I came from India, so I never ridden at that level. But most people are riding at the 4-star level for 4 years, and then they go to the Olympics. For me, I was at the 4-star level only for a year, but because I was still at the 1-star level when I left India. So when I went to Australia, I did my 1, then I did my 2, and then I did 3, and then got, so it took me a little bit of, I had to do everything like a bit like a crash course.
Like in tennis, when you win the Wimbledon or you win the US, you get money, right? I mean,
Yes.
Until then you have to spend everything from your own pocket for the coach.
Yes.
How different is it for?
So in equestrian, it's we don't win money at all, ever. So there's no money in a sport. It's only you get a ribbon or a sachet. So it's all funded by yourself. So again, I was very, very fortunate. I had the most amazing sponsor, Mr. Kushru Danjiboy. He's passionate about horse racing. He wasn't even an equestrian, but he loved the horse. He just loved horses. And when he saw that passion in me, he just said, he just supported me all throughout. And we had lots of failures, and a lot of times I was, just ready to come back. And I said, this is not for me, or I can't do it, or I didn't have the right horse, or, horses got injured. And he just stood by me and said, just keep pushing and don't give in. So, all these people, I have Diana on one side supporting me, I had my parents on one side supporting me, and then I had, Beverly out in Australia, and then I had Mr. Danjiboy, who's, saying, just stay with it. So I was very lucky, very lucky.
So do you think that's also one of the reasons that a lot of people don't take up to the sport?
Well, I don't know whether that could be one of the reasons. I don't think that's the reason. That's at least in the middle, because once they get into sport, they realize it's not only fun. I mean, you look at it in my way also. Till I went to Australia, I never had my own horse. So it was still possible. It's about how you behave, how your work ethic, your determination. I never missed a day. I never missed a training, and like Vishnu saw that in me, Brigadier Vishnu at that time. And he said, wow, look at this boy. He's so hardworking. I want to give him a horse, So it's also your, people always ask what came, what's first? Did people come and help you, or did you go to them?
But you can't. I'm just playing devil's advocate. You can't.
Yes.
You can't assume that people will come and help you. So how do you then prepare that? I want to be like Imtiaz.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know whether I have the same luck as Imtiaz, but I want to be
Ye-
like Imtiaz. I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to do
Yes.
everything. But how do I sustain myself? Because I can't live on love and fresh air.
But that's what I say. I always believe that if you want to do it, it is possible, because in our sport we have a lot of things where, because all these stables are very big stables who are equestrian stables, and you have to work in those stables. So if you got the work ethic, it will happen. It happened to me and happened to every other rider, even the top riders in Europe or in Australia. They've all started from scratch. Not everybody just pouring money in, or not everybody's got major funding and things like that, right? So if you go to a stable, you start working, I cleaned stables. I worked in, my parents didn't even know the things that I did. And it's in the book, I slept in stables for months for that one riding lesson, which was free because of the work I did. Then eventually through that, somebody gave me a horse and said, well, look at the money. You work so hard. Here, you can ride my horse. Or it happens to everybody, because people are looking for people. Most people have 10 and 12 horses. They can't ride them all. Like my stable, I have now 12 horses. I've got boys and girls who are staying with me and riding. If I find the right horse and the right work ethic, I will let them compete on my horses. Give them that opportunity. So there's a platform for that. But I don't believe this, that oh well, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough, because you never have enough money. Whatever you want to do today, you want to buy a 30-inch TV. You then next time you want a 60-inch. If you want 16, you'll want a bigger one. So you'll never have enough money. Same with, you'll have enough time. Nobody has time. Everybody in India says, time nahi hai. No. This you make your time. If you want something, you make it work for yourself. Go and get it. Figure out a plan. You have to start getting out of the comfort zone. This is our biggest problem, I feel, is in today's kids, in today's generation, is, everything's in the comfort zone. Everything's given to them in a platter. You got to be hungry for it a bit.
Yeah. So tell me, what was the most difficult part of your Olympic journey?
I think I would say one of the most difficult part, I would say, is being away from family and friends. It's very lonely. It's a lonely part. It's not easy. You got to be so single-minded. I miss that a lot. I really miss that. Give up 4 years of that age when you're in your 20, 25, you got all your friends and everybody's going out partying and meeting. Not that the person I was, but sometimes you just wanted to have a chat with a friend, or just wanted to go for a coffee, or, spend time with your parents. I didn't have that, so I miss that. So I think that was hard. If I go into the training, everybody trains hard. If I go into the riding, everybody had to do that, So, but for me, they didn't have to leave their home and family to do that. And most people do it for a month, 2 months. I was there for 3-4 years, at a long stretch to be away from everything that you knew, everything that was comfortable, everything that was you. I'm very Indian in every aspect. Even though I've lived overseas all my life, I am Indian. I love Indian food, and I love being at home, and so I missed that part. It was a hard time. So I'm so glad it happened. And I reached the goal.
So what was your feeling when you qualified and you won?
No, I think when I qualified, it was just amazing. You feel like on top of the world. I really felt that, because again, it's a childhood dream. Then it became even bigger when I actually got to ride, because our sport is quite technical and very, very difficult, very dangerous, and most people don't complete it. So having completed the cross country, that itself was another accomplishment, because I would be the first Indian to have actually completed it. Because there was an Indian equestrian rider from the army who had gone to the Olympics before me, but had not completed the course. So for me to have completed it, that's what really made a huge difference. Because then I said, all right, that was a real accomplishment for me.
And is it that you do once? Did you try to go back to Olympics?
Yes, of course. So the next 2 years is the World Championship. So my horse was ready and fit. So again, I was the first to compete in a 3-day event or at the World Championships for India. So that was another feather in my hat, and I just felt so proud, to do that, because it was all about India, and I was on the same horse, Spring Invader. So it was a lovely partnership that we had, and then after that, just to give you an example, I'm sorry to diverse a little bit,
No,
but when
please,
you say, how do you get the money? It's same like that. I was training in Australia, and the world champs in Spain. How am I going to fly my horse from America to Spain? But people came. There was a guy, he said, how much is it going to cost? I said, well, it's going to cost so much. He said, no, don't worry, let's figure it out. We'll get some of my friends. We all play golf. We'll find some buddies and we'll try and put some money together. Then somebody else said something else. And then I was, when I was competing, I made lots of friends. I made friends with the Canadian team. The Canadian team said, no, just put your horses, one of ours. And we are flying our horses. We'll just take yours as well. not to worry. So it just happens. People help. People get together. People, it's just amazing how this universe comes together when you have your goal, which is true and which is honest, and it's how your relationships. It's not that if you're arrogant and you're late and you're always lazy, or you're always, people don't want to help people like that. So, but if you're always on time, you're always helpful, you're always one step ahead, it will happen. So that's how it happened. And then from that World Championships, I thought, okay, let's go to the next Olympics, which is in Greece, and I qualified for that as well. But unfortunately, I had a different horse. By then, Spring Invader was getting old, so I had another lovely horse called Freetown, a little fellow, heart of gold, and he got injured. So I couldn't make, so we were still up to standard to qualify, but we didn't make the cutoff, and that's life.
I mean, I'm just listening to you. I mean, I can you can see my hair rising here. It's such an amazing thing. I mean, so when did you get back to India?
So I got back to India on the last flight from Australia when the pandemic started. In March last year. So I was training in Australia, and I was actually a part of the junior national team, and I would train them and coach them. Actually, it was the first school team. So I was actually based at a school, which was an equestrian school, and I was the first. It was an all-girls boarding school where the girls came with their horses, and I was the trainer, and I took them international for the very first time. So we took them to Malaysia, and I took them to New Zealand, and we won gold out there as well. So it was a huge thing. So that's when that shift took place, that from a rider, I became a coach and became a mentor. I'm still very close to them. And then because of the pandemic, I decided to come back to India because, Australia has very strict rules, and I didn't know when I would be allowed to come in and come out. And my son was here, my family was here. I didn't want to be away from them. So that's when I decided to come back to India in March. And then when I was here again, I was thinking whether I should go back to Australia, go back to America. There were quite a few options open. But at that time, I really thought that now this is the time to actually focus on India, stay home, be with the family. I've been away for so long. I really need to stay home, and I love it.
Great. So tell me, how did you meet Zenath?
Are we supposed to talk about this on live?
Yes, why not? Tell me.
I met Zenath when I came back from India. When I came back in March, I met her through some common friends, and we were actually introduced. And then we just kept in touch, and we started talking and chatting, and it was through the pandemic, and then the book helped a little bit because she was living in her home, I was in my home, and we were online all the time talking and discussing the book and going back and forth, and the relationship grew. And before you had it, she had moved into and I decided to do Nargo. She said, I fully support it, and let's do it.
So did you always have this dream of setting up your own place, like what you have now started in Nargo?
In India, yes. I had my own place in America as well. So once I finished the World Championships, I decided that I'm going to have my own training place in the US, and I did. In Atlanta, I owned my own farm and trained people, riders, horses, mainly young riders. And my main focus has always been on the youth because I just feel they're like a sponge. They just want to learn all the time. And I spent so much time with so many good riders and trainers because I needed to catch up. I started too late. So I was very fortunate to get a lot of lessons from a lot of good people. So I had that knowledge to give back. So I started that, but I never did it in India, and I always wanted to. And just the timing happened, and it's all about timing in life. And maybe I have to thank the pandemic for it. There's certain things you have to thank it for, and one of them would be is starting Nargo.
Yeah, and when you started, I mean, where did you get the 16 horses from?
Amazing. Again, story. See, things like this happen. So I started, and I said, how am I going to do this? And I met Mr. Dungy Boy. After so many years, my main sponsor, and he said, and I said, this is what I want to do. He said, great idea, because my granddaughter loves equestrian, and I'm going to be the first to give you horses to train. So it took a whole full circle. I mean, he was the one who actually supported me for the Asian Games, Olympic Games, World Championships, and then I left and went overseas for 10 years. And I come back after 10 years, and he again comes back into my life and says, "Here, you can start your thing." With the first 3 horses came from his stud farm, Nanoli Stud Farm. So it was just it's all meant to be. And then friends, then people started talking, people started realizing it, and they started sending me horses, and next is history.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to give you a name, I would call you Destiny's Child.
I'm blessed, blessed. I'm very fortunate, very fortunate in life.
So, what are your plans now?
Well, now my plan is, to be honest, Raj. I mean, it would be lovely to really get as many kids to come and give them that exposure, give them that experience, and hopefully get a group that can go international, and support them to it. I mean, it's not about me. It's not about, like how you said, this show is about you. When these kids come to me, it's about them. I've already been there, done it, I've achieved, and I've been so grateful with all the people that have supported me. I just feel that I need to do it for somebody else. So when these kids come here, I'm always talking to them how to plan, and every kid is different. That's the difference between coaching and mentoring. You coach everybody the same, but mentoring, no. Once the kids come and live with me, I get to know their background. I get to know how much I can push them. I get to know their their financial situation. I get to know their commitment. I get to know their education. How much they want to do schooling. So then you mold it to what suits them. There's no point telling them, everybody has to do A. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not a school. It's not like everybody learns 1 + 1 is 2. No, they could be half plus half plus half plus half could be. You know what I mean? You could break it up. So that's what I love doing, is really mentoring these kids rather than just coaching them. I love the coaching part as well, but it's actually getting into their lives. And so that's my next goal, is to hopefully take these kids that I have and place them internationally with international riders for them to fly.
And if you had to give a message to all the youngsters today who want to pursue this as a career, what would you say to
Well,
them?
I would tell them, not only this is a career, anything in life, it's the same. It doesn't matter whether it's sport, whether it's equestrian or anything like that. I would always tell them, get out of the comfort zone, because nothing is achieved just because, I play cricket because the ground next to me is very close. No, there are people who drive hours to get to the best ground. There are people who drive hours to get to the best coaches. There are people who leave a city to move to another city only to find the right coach. So what I'm trying to send the message, it doesn't matter in whatever you do, whether it's today, it could be sport, tomorrow it could be being a chef, it could be in arts, whatever it is, find the best and train with them, because there's a reason why they're the best, and they're not always about money. So you can find a way to exchange work, do something in return if you don't have the funding. But if you work hard enough, people will see it. The top riders, the top trainers, the top business people, they see, when you intern at a business, the top man knows who the good interns are, and he's not silly, right? He wants good people. So you'll be picked up if you're good. You're on time, you're always there before the meeting starts, you have your papers together, you got the right file, you're already halfway there. So that's what I keep telling them. Punctuality, discipline, determination, these are things that we have been told all the time when we're young, but actually put them in practice.
Very nice. And amazing. So, Raj Nayak wants to come and learn horse riding. How long it's going to take?
I always tell people, if you just basic, at least walk, trot a horse, you need at least 4 days, 4 to 5 days at a stretch.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike. Once you get the feel of it and you get the rhythm, you got it. And then it's practice. Then it's hours and saddle, just like driving a car or anything. Once you understand, you can drive, then you just have to drive. You can't just not do it till you,
then you get the hang of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So tell me, what made you write this book?
Riding free.
Riding
Well,
free.
I think I've already brought it up many times in this whole story, in this whole conversation that we have. But the main reason I wrote it is to tell kids to, dream, have dreams, because dreams come true. Push yourselves, do something out of the norm, because this book is all about that. I was a privileged boy, I was a timid boy, I wasn't a very strong or tough boy. I had everything really on a silver platter. Literally, I really did. I was so spoiled in every aspect. But I didn't just think that was good enough for me. I left. I moved to Delhi. Was my first move. I stayed in army cantonment area. Of course, the army really looked after me, and very good officers, like I mentioned earlier, who really were supportive. But it's still away from my family, away from my friends, because I wanted something which was very, far-fetched. So I keep telling, and when you read this book, it's not about equestrian, it's not about sport, it's about getting those stories out. And the next thing, the reason I wanted to was really to thank all the people. You just see this book. It's amazing the amount of people that came into my lives at all points of it, just at the right time to take me to the next step. So whenever I was on a ladder, about to fall, there were like somebody there standing there holding me and saying, no, we are here. Keep climbing, keep climbing. And it was just amazing. Otherwise, I would have fallen to the ground, and maybe I wouldn't have started climbing again. But every time I went one step down, I had an angel come there and literally support me. and it didn't matter. It was in India, whether it was Australia, so it was not bound by country or bound by nationality or bound by anything. These people came in, and same with the horses. Every stage of my life, I had the most amazing horse that came into my life. How, when, it's all in the book. It's like a fairy tale actually, and I was lucky.
So Imtiaz, if people want to buy this book, where can they find it?
Amazon. Right now, it's available on Amazon. So I really wish all parents, please buy the book and read it, because it's about telling your children to live their dream and not holding them back. Kids, please read it, because it tells you that you got to be resilient, you got to be hardworking, and failures do happen, but never give in. My school motto, Lawrence Kutsana, that's the one thing that's on the wall, and you read it every day. And our school song we had to sing every day was "Never give in" is our motto. So you never ever give in. So it's instilled in me. Whatever happens, you do not give in.
Yeah. No, fantastic. I mean, it was so refreshing speaking to you. I mean, I could go on, and there's so much I'm sure one can go on speaking about horses. But I promise you, I'm going to make a trip to Nargol one of these days.
I'm looking forward to it, and I hope other people come as well. They can send me a message, send me an email. Definitely, just come for the experience. We have people who've never seen a horse or never touched a horse, and to people who are riding at top level. It doesn't matter. It's an amazing, amazing animal, and it's so fun, so good for their kids, because it really teaches them it builds their character. Let me put it that way. It really does. It's just very therapeutic.
Great. So thank you so much, Imtiaz. I think we've almost spent almost an hour.
Oh my God! I know.
Time just flew by.
And thank you again for having me.
Anytime. And thank you
lovely,
so much.
lovely. You've just been wonderful.
Yes. Take care, and hopefully we shall catch up soon.
Thank you again. All right. Take care.
See you. Bye-bye.